So thank you so much for joining. We are going to be learning. Uh, it's Derech Hashem. So we're just going to be learning from this book, and we're going to be starting from the the introduction. So we were talking about like why we start with an introduction,
And
and
I was saying that it's so boring. Can we get to the good stuff?
I heard a Rav say once. He said if you starting by the introduction is like entering a house from the front door. If you skip an introduction, it's like climbing in through a window. So that's always stuck with me. And then
That's cool.
yeah, it's kind of the concept of like also with lists in the morning, like you usually kind of make a list of sorts of what you're going to um like what you're going to do, even if it's not, if it's a mental list. um Before you actually kind of go through your day, you kind of basically have an idea of what's going to happen. And if you skip, so that's kind of the introduction is kind of a little bit of that, because it kind of gives you, it kind of structures the work in that way where it prepares you for the work itself. So yeah, that's the little bit. But
I like that.
yeah.
Yeah.
Um, but we decided we're going to do this because me and Esther were at some point we decided we want to learn this, and we did start, and then we thought it could be interesting to bring everybody else on board that might
Mhm.
be curious about their own personal journey, because when it comes to our relationship with ourselves and our creator, a lot of times for a lot of us it's like the basics we've learned in school, but the things we've learned in school we relate to with an 8-year-old brain and a 10-year-old brain. And when it comes to hashkafa in general, for a lot of us, everything was very matter of fact rather than kind of discussion um, and conversational. And um, I mean, I know even for myself, I had to like re-educate my own self with my connection to myself and to my creator, because it just feels it I just felt like I didn't have enough tools and a clear understanding of what it was. Um, and for a lot of us, when it comes to our relationship with, a higher power, a lot of times it's like almost like an abusive male adult. Like
Mhm.
that's kind of and it'll be
Yep.
Avas Hashem and Yiras Hashem of like you have to love Hashem and then also really be scared. So that combination in itself is extremely dysfunctional. And unfortunately, for a lot of people, that's the reality. So before we even start, the um like an approach to love is this kind of unconditional love, this place of vibrance and flow and connection. Like when you think of the context of somebody that you love, right? It has many rich factors, and it's unconditional. There's a sense of you being able to really be yourself and connect with yourself. From like a psychological or even an emotional perspective, if you're not in the place of loving, right, or you disconnect, and that is the opposite of a flow and the point of being in a relationship. So the first indicator that you're connected is that there is a sense of flow and connection and transparency of sorts. Um, and so with our connection with Hashem, and especially when we want to add kind of like a connection in general, that is a really important component to just have in mind. And it's kind of a mirror, like the relationship we have with the universe, right? The way Hashem created the world, because you know, as much as Hashem is invisible, he is visible in all the things he's created around us. And the way we engage with Hashem is through the things that we interact with in our life, if it's people or things or even ourselves or our thoughts. So this book is kind of a structure of like it like reintroduces certain factors and also like sets the rules, almost like if you're going to go to the gym. um there's certain very specific structures of how to kind of you bend your knees when you're going to do a deadlift, and you're gonna, back straight so you don't break your back, the way you squat, the way we do things. And like going to the gym, when if we don't get the right instructions, we will hurt ourselves. And I have a friend
Mm.
that every single time he goes, he's like, okay, I'm gonna go back to the gym. And and he starts, and literally within a week he gets injured every single time he
Mm.
starts the gym. And I'm like, because nobody's taught, like, pay a trainer to teach you what kind of moves or support you need for your specific body type. And for a lot of us in our spiritual journey, a lot of us get injured. And then we
Mm.
think, oh, we got injured, so I'm stepping away from this, rather than saying, oh, maybe I need to get the right trainer or the right training. And
Mm.
there's universal rules to how certain things work. And especially with spirituality, there's universal rules, and they're going to be kind of very structured. But it's having in mind that part of that structure is going to help us not break our back or get injured
Mm.
in the process. So that's like my little rants.
I love it. I love it. And I also, well, the thing that popped up when you said that there's a universal way, is there also like a more like custom personalized way for each type of body type? Like when you're, comparing it to the gym, also for the spiritual part of us. Like can we learn things, can other people learn things differently? Do other people have different avenues in order to connect to their spirituality, besides the universal way?
So thinking of the universal way is like thinking of um it's like thinking when we're all, like, both of us we're both trained yoga teachers, right?
Yeah.
So you learn the rules of in the teacher training. Then how
Hmm.
you adjust per person is
Right.
according to like your intellect and intuition as you read the room, right? Like we tell people,
Yeah.
for example, in like when we're giving a yoga class, is like, pay attention to your body, notice if this is putting too much stress on you. Where are you today?
Yeah.
And for a lot of so I think when it comes to a spiritual practice, it's a similar thing, where it's just
Yeah.
knowing the rules, just like you learn a certain training and certain kind of bends, I would say, go into certain poses and postures. But
Yeah.
as we posture, even in emotionally posture, physically, spiritually posture, we have to have in mind that again, if we're not connected to ourselves, it's like going into yoga class mindlessly. You're going to hurt
Right.
yourself. You're not going to
Right.
enjoy yourself because you're not connected. Part of being connected is taking in all those things that show up. And one of the first things that show up and we'll just bring yoga into it because I think it's interesting. It's kind of an interesting analogy, and it really
And it's also how I found my Hashem
right. No, I also,
in
yes.
yoga. Oh yeah, you also?
For
Wow.
me, for me, yoga training helped deepen my practice for sure.
Yeah.
Percent.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
like, if any of you've ever been in a yoga class for the first time, there is so much struggle in the sense of, like, when you start to move in a specific way and you haven't moved some of those body parts in a while, or bend upside down or any of that, you start to feel a sense of discomfort because you haven't connected with those places in your body in so long. Another thing that happens is that there's this fear of not trusting yourself. And that's what I found, the fear of not being able to trust myself that I could squat or move in that way. And then taking instruction. That was also really
Right. Yeah.
it's like, oh my gosh, am I going to be able to, right foot, left foot? What am I supposed to do here?
Am
So,
I doing it right?
right.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so just like in that kind of context, in the beginning, when you're starting something, you kind of have to learn. They always say, learn the rules to break them. And it's not so you could break them, it's to integrate yourself.
Yeah.
So when we
The
learn,
cust could the customize just to customize it towards your own needs and process. Is
right,
that what
exactly.
you mean? Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So in the beginning, when you start anything new, you go in and you're like, okay, I'm going to do this the way they're saying to do it, right? Like the
Hmm.
rules are. And then you start all as you kind of have that repetition, you start to see what your body's needs are. And that's the beauty of
Yeah.
this is that your body will communicate to you exactly what it is that you need and if you need more or if you need less. And spirituality is an interesting thing because I heard a Rev say once that it's almost like water. Like they say Torah is like water. Like is it resembles water. And if you notice people drink like some people need a ton of water in a day and some people are good with barely any.
Mm.
It doesn't mean that one is good and one is bad. It just means that some people just need more and
Yeah.
people are very thirsty. So when it comes to spirituality, it's kind of a similar kind of thing where some people
Very cool.
need more and some people just
Yeah.
are good on being topped up. But yeah.
Yeah. Topped up. That's cute.
Yeah.
That should be a name of your next book. Top off your spirituality or your connection to God.
So yeah, so with that, I mean, any thoughts on your end, Esther? Like any thoughts of like why you thought
Um, well, I have a million thoughts, but like I don't know how long we're supposed to go for
well,
on
you can
this
share.
call.
Well, we're again, it's intuitive, so say what you need.
Yeah?
Sure, because
All
this is
right.
so
So I really like the fact that we're so similar but so different, which is like very different flavors, and there are so many more different type of people out there, but like we have a few similarities that is like universal, right? And I like that we have different ways of getting to the connection to Hashem. We have different ways of practicing the relationship and working on it. Um, and it's beautiful. I feel very, you know, appreciated and respected and loved by you because you see me for who I am and you love all the parts, but we still get to, like work on it together. So I just like that very much. I appreciate it.
well. I think you.
And sorry, what did you say?
No, I said I thank you too. I mean, I
Yeah.
I feel like that's mutual and
Yeah.
um being able to kind of share practice is really beautiful. And we each have, and that's
Yeah.
the thing that I think everyone has beautiful things and there's so much we can all learn from each other. And I learned so much from you. And
Mm,
there is a balance between the two of us. Like I feel like, in ways that you ground me. Um,
mm.
and yeah, so
I
and
thank you.
it's interesting to dive into this. And I feel like for our
Yeah.
generation, especially, a lot of this is missing. This is why I'm saying even with
Yeah.
this work, like for me, parts of me feel like it's like part of my hesitation of going into this kind of practice aw, we love you too. um,
That's so cute.
yeah. Um,
Oh,
I think part of this work also is it does dive a little extreme,
yeah.
like is pretty extreme, and that was part of my fear of like, oh, how extreme that is. But then back to like the yoga analogy, like really understanding the structure and the authenticity of it is so important.
Yeah.
We need to have some of these conversations. So,
Yeah.
ramble. So,
Yes.
so we stop?
Yes.
You want to start? Do you want to?
Me?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I guess so. You know how I love introductions. The Hagdama, it brings me back to Papa School.
Mm-hmm.
Okie dokie. So that's page 21, right?
Yeah.
Um, all right. Introduction to Derech Hashem. When one knows a number of things and understands how they are categorized and systematically interrelated, then he has a great advantage, or she has a great advantage over one who has the same knowledge without such distinction. It is very much like the difference between looking at a well-arranged garden planted in rows and patterns and seeing a wild thicket or forest growing in confusion. I feel like I'm the forest in the thicket with the confusion.
I think we all have both.
Yeah. You're right.
'Cause
Yeah.
in your work, I see like Esther's an interior a graphic artist, and when I see your
Yeah.
work, I'm fascinated with that beautiful
Aw. Okay,
create.
so one part of the garden is cultivated.
Okay.
Okay, good. The other one looks like Jumanji. When an individual is confronted by many details and does not know how they relate to one another or their true place in a general system, then his inquisitive intellect is giving nothing more than a difficult, unsatisfying burden. He may struggle with it, but he will tire and grow weary long before he attains any gratification. Each detail will arouse his curiosity, but not having access to the concept as a whole, he will remain frustrated. Should I make sound effects? Okay. If one wishes to understand something, it is therefore very important that he be aware of other things associated with it as well as its place among them. Without this, one's longing for truth will be frustrated and he will be pained by his unsatisfied desire. This
So,
is I don't know if this is high vocabulary, but this is like my brain doesn't comprehend it so well, the way it's
okay.
written.
So should we
Yeah.
break it down?
Yes, please.
Okay. So what it's saying in conclusion in these few paragraphs is that everyone's going through life, and when we don't have an awareness of certain things, or when we're setting intentions, like we all have desires, right? So it says, so you know what, I'll start from the last word that you just used, which was unsatisfied desires. Now the fact that in the introduction of this it says that you're going to be frustrated because and pained by unsatisfied desires means that desire in general in life is important, and desire is the thing that really leads the charge, because when we get up in the morning the thing that gives us passion is desire. So the thing is if we think about the word desire in Hebrew, it is taiva, right? And
Yeah. That has such a negative connotation
okay,
looking back.
yeah, but if you think
Yeah.
about it, it's the same shoresh as teva. So teva is nature, and
Right.
there's a in school we were taught, teva shel adam nimshach
Yeah.
acharei tavato, that the nature of a person is that they're drawn after their desires. And if for most of us that have learned that, we think that, oh, it's that draw to your desire is a
Mhm.
terrible thing, and you shouldn't go there. But if you actually look at the words, teva and taiva have the same shorish. That means that it's inevitable in life, that
Mm.
everyone is drawn after their desire because that is where your purpose is. Now, if you split desire in two, you have addictive behavior, which is coming
Mm.
from a negative place. But when we talk about positive desire, they always say when it comes to diet or even workout, anything in life, even what you're attracted to, if that's in a person, in a food, um, you could basically figure out your, let's say you feel like you're gaining weight, or you're in a place where you're feeling sluggish. They say just look at the food you're eating. Now, for most
Mm.
people, they'll go to a dietitian and they'll kind of break everything down and be like, don't eat this, don't eat that. Which I'm not saying don't go to a health professional. But
Mhm.
when you're trying to also discover your own nature and desire, if you sit down with yourself, shut everything off, and you sit in front of your food and you start paying attention to the flavors and the digestive process and what flavors you need. Like if you're saying like, oh, I need some sugar, right? For a lot of people, when we think about, oh, we need sugar, we'll go to the closet and grab something sweet. But if I say to you, you can take a fruit that also has
Mhm.
sugar, and you can have as much of that as you're desired. Like it's just adjusting it to a
Mm.
healthy perspective, where when you have that health, you lean into a healthy desire versus an unhealthy desire. You naturally, it's like your body's telling you you need that. So the punchline is, we desire is a huge component, and it's even telling us this in the Hakdama on the first page, on the second, third paragraph, that desire is an important thing. And if you don't understand life in itself, you're going to be frustrated and pained by your unsatisfied desires. So it's
Mm.
actually the opposite of so many of the things that we've learned in life. So we'll talk from a proactive perspective, but basically, the difference between the garden and the weeds, like building a garden is just mindful nurturing. So it's kind of stepping back and being like, I want to build a garden. You go to the store, you buy the seeds, you kind of make sure that it's compatible with the city you're living in, the climate. Then you kind of have to know your own schedule. If you're working, you might not have a lot of time to tend to a garden. Um, so it's just noticing where it is that you are. And for somebody that doesn't know the rules of gardening they end up building a huge forest, and then it becomes really frustrating. So I think what it's like the emphasis, and I think it's going to go into this really, really deep in the rest of the work in the teachings, is to just have in mind that like the goal of this is to give you an awareness. At the end of the day, it says the observer observed, right? The observer is stronger than anything else. Because when you're aware of something, that's where it changes.
Mm.
And so it's not like we're not saying to you change everything in your life. It's just you're literally awakening your natural desire, your inner desire. And in a world where there's so much advertisement and so much push and lean to work for everyone else, like everyone's advocating to either work for somebody else or, wear brand name clothing where you're wearing somebody else's clothes, right? Like you're literally working for somebody else. You're paying somebody else
Mm.
rent, everything's for somebody else. There's very little time to actually sit back and be like, hold on, what do I really need? What do I really want? And for most of us, including myself, I have very little time to actually activate my um my dreams in my
Mm.
life. I'm all like most of my day is dedicated towards building other people, building everybody else's things so I can get by. So that's any comments? Any comments?
Oh my gosh, that was really amazing. Um, yeah, I mean, just today or like the past few days, like our desire to connect to something meaningful and greater than ourselves, um, we're nurturing that, in a way that we know how, and that feels good. Um, and yeah, like the whole mindful nourishment is so amazing. Sometimes people they come to class, the yoga class, and they're like, am I going to lose weight from just doing these exercises? I don't feel my heart pumping. I'm not sweating. And I'm like, yes, you will, because yoga will bring you into your body, and then you can be more mindful of how you're feeling and your needs, and then you can fill those needs appropriately, right? So I feel that a lot of times when I'm going to the refrigerator, I'm just famished, right? But I'm like, what do I want and what do I need are two sometimes different things. And I can make that decision much, much easier with being connected to myself. So that was my tool, is my tool,
Yeah.
and my way of doing things, in physical practice and spiritual practice and everything in between. So I totally, yeah.
I mean, the way America's built, or even the school system, all of that, which ends up bleeding into even for most of us that have kind of grown up in a religious culture, everything kind of is influenced by the place that we live in. So
Yeah.
the way we're indoctrinated is to be good citizens. They want us to comply, which is fine, and a lot of it is convenient and it works for us. But the and for a lot of us, we live very comfortable lives. But the downside of that is that there's a certain kind of compliance that we all find ourselves um, like, we're our loyalty is to show up as a good citizen, which we should, but it's more about building a better external environment, and it's not so supportive of building the interior. And
Mm,
in a day and age where there is so much comfort out there, the frustration most of us feel is that at the end of the day, that inner satisfaction is not there, no matter how much money we've been
Yeah.
taught that money is going to give us that, or a certain physique, even, right? Like,
Yeah.
um, yes, things are healthy. It's healthy to have balanced finances and be in a healthy body type, but you have to also pay attention to like your happiness and
Yeah.
contentment and where that comes from. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's so
Awesome.
do you want to continue?
Yeah. You know what? You want to take over or should I?
You want
I mean,
to
should I continue?
you can continue. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Okay, so to continue, the exact opposite is true when one knows something in relation to its context. Since he sees it within its framework, he can go on to grasp other concepts associated with it, and his success will bring him pleasure and elation. Should I continue?
So I'll just
Yeah, let me know when you want to comment. Yeah.
I'll explain it. So what it's saying is that when something is disorganized, as we said in the past, there is a lack of enjoyment that is there.
Mhm.
But what he's saying here is the exact opposite is when somebody sees something within its framework. And when he's talking about a framework, he's saying that you understand how something works.
Right.
So when we understand how something works, then there's a certain genuine satisfaction that comes with that. I know
Mhm.
even for myself, I think you had this as well. But and again, this is where we have different desires. Like, I had kids in my 20s, right? We both had kids
Mhm.
in our teens and our 20s.
Yeah, I think all of us here.
Yeah. Um, and it was a great thing. It was great and it was wonderful. And um, but I always think at 40, we were both single mothers for a while. And part of me was also curious, like now that I'm, you know, in my 40s, it's interesting to be like, okay, if I had children now, I feel like my sense of awareness of even like a pregnancy and the interaction with my environment. I'm a seasoned professional. Like
Yeah.
there's a certain satisfaction that comes with an education, with knowing. So
Yeah, sure.
not saying that we need to wait or whatever, but I'm just saying like looking back at that resonates with me where I was like, at this age, I mean, I don't have the energy that I have at 20 that I would, and I know, that would be challenging, but the thing that I would appreciate is the sense of awareness.
Yeah.
And I find the same with cooking. Like I've been doing it for so
Mm.
long, and I actually sent my son breakfast this morning. My
Oh,
married son. So I sent my husband breakfast and I sent my son breakfast.
oh.
And I sent him a good breakfast because I made some sourdough and
Ooh.
um I sent him like a dip, which was I'll just share because we're doing this. So it's more Sparty style.
Yeah.
Cottage cheese and some Kalamata olives, za'atar, olive oil,
Yum.
and yeah, and it was delicious. And I put it in a container and I added the bread and stuff. I like the sourdough slices and I sent it off. And I'm like, nobody can compete with that.
Yeah. Right?
So I'm
I
saying,
want to be on this breakfast
fair.
delivery list.
So come on over.
Oh
But
my
my
God.
point is that when you're older, I'm saying not when you're older, but when you're more educated and aware, I would say, about certain things, there's genuinely a sense of enjoyment that comes with that.
I love that. And also want to add that I had kids in my 20s, then I got remarried and had in my 30s. Very different. I don't know if I had this kind of education, but life smacked me around. That was the education I had. The awareness had no choice but to grow, start growing, right? So there you go. Like, if you're not going to learn it, life's going to just teach it to you. Bam, bam, bam. You know? But also age plays a big role, I feel like also, with the experience, maybe even brain development.
Yeah, for sure. And the thing is
Yeah,
like this, that there's two ways we learn in life. We either learn from our experiences or we can kind of create the awareness and that kind of
yeah.
by the preparation, which is the um the title of my next book is The Art of Preparation.
Yeah,
But
I feel like that's all our conversations are talking about your next book, and it's always pertains to what we're talking about. And there's so many books already.
there are, but I spit them out.
You do, you spit
I
them
do.
out.
I finish what I say I'm going to start.
Yes, you do.
Okay.
Yeah, not many people can say that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But again, that was the training comes in. So if the training
Yeah.
there, yeah, then that's
Mm,
that, you know?
I love that. And you
Um,
made me hungry now. So thank you very much.
so here's we have a comment here. You
Oh,
want
oh, yeah, sure. What does it say? Today there is no much where there's so much more awareness. That's true. When growing up, there wasn't. Hopefully, our kids get to embrace and appreciate every step of life more. I wonder about that, Rissy. I feel like my kids, like I always look at them like they're so spoiled. Like I had it so hard, right? Every generation before that is always thinking that the next one, is just so lucky and spoiled and doesn't know how good they have it. Like right now, this generation, I don't know about you guys, but my kids are squandering this awareness and freedom and whatever in in social media, in and their phones, where the awareness is like just sucked right out of their faces. Like, I don't know, it's not everyone, but it's like my kids, which I'm trying to put boundaries because I want them to appreciate this new freedom and this new education that our generation can give them. And I think it's a jungle out there, honestly.
one thing I can add to that is that I think every generation has something new. It says that
Yeah,
also in like we look at the arc of time that now we're in that kind of intellectual phase of the arc of time in general. So things are a lot more intellectual when we look at the amount of information that's available when it comes to intellect, it's insane. But every
yeah,
generation has something new that it's introduced to. So
right.
in that there it comes it's given to us without the rules, and then the rules are created around kind of the awareness that's created. So I feel like the same with the internet or education, the influx of even self-care. um
Mm,
it's been given to us without rules, and there are extremes out
mm,
there of like how much self-care. there's no there is no kind of boundary yet kind of set on that, because it just we're still in the testing phase. So
yeah.
that being said, first things are kind of it's like saying, when we were kids, cars, right, and seatbelts, and the way cars were made and the way we kind of drove around. It took a couple generations to kind of perfect and say like, oh, if there aren't seatbelts, or if the car isn't made this way, there's more ratio of
Right.
accidents or deaths, or the engine failing or whatever it is. Um, like something interesting that I heard lately, and again, I'm just sharing something I heard. So from GarageBand did they're like they do kind of natural healing and stuff. And he was talking about electric cars, that electric cars creates infertility in men.
Wow.
And then my daughter said in school they learned that putting a laptop on your lap, this is in Bell's girls school,
Oh,
that can cause infertility in women.
really?
Yeah. And these are things that, great, you have a laptop, you have this, that, and the other. And we don't know yet all the structure, the
Right.
nuances. So I think when it comes to, yes, our kids have a lot, maybe more than we did. They have more of something,
Right.
but it doesn't mean that we have less. It's just something
Right.
to discover. So yeah,
Right. Cool. I like that.
just
And also,
yeah.
yeah, definitely a laptop awareness. Also, the cell phone. Like sometimes I sleep with it under my pillow. What am I doing to my brain in the middle of the night? I don't even know.
Yeah, they
I
say like,
guess I guess we'll find out.
yeah, there you go. Here, we'll just finish this first page, I think. And
Yeah, yeah. Okay.
all right, so you wanna take it away? Last.
Okay, sure, sure. All right. So hold on. Yeah.
So there's one more
Yeah.
paragraph, so it goes into the next
Yeah, I see.
they
Yeah, I see. Okay.
just go with the
Just
paragraph.
finish it. Okay. When one studies a subject, he must therefore be aware of the place of each element within the most general scheme. When one takes into account existence as a whole, including everything imaginable, whether detectable by our senses or conceivable by our minds, then he recognizes that things are not all in the same category and level. The categories are both varied and numerous, and as they vary, so do the rules and principles associated with them. In order to comprehend the true nature of each thing, one must also be able to recognize these distinctions. Right? That's what you just said.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A really simple thing would be when you see a certain culture, right? Like people even see us as religious Jews and or Jews in general. They'd be like, oh, they
Yeah.
look the same. And it's just like, no, no, no. When they portray us on TV, we're like, oh no, that you got it all wrong. And they're like, what do you
Yeah.
mean what we see? And we're like, no, there are so many little nuances when you're aware of, the more you're aware of, the more nuance you can pick up.
Yeah.
And that just goes with everything in life.
I
So,
like seeing twins
right,
also.
right.
Yeah.
Things that, things will look the same. Um, even Esther and Esther.
Yeah. Twins.
But the point is that awareness, I think we'll close out with like awareness is key. And the more awareness we have, it's not just to be able to scrutinize, but it kind of boils down to kind of, I think, at the end of the day, that desire. The more engaged we are with the details, the more
Mm,
interactive we are, the more um that's kind of where the enjoyment in life comes in. And I think that's
mm,
the point of this book, is that we should be able to enjoy, it's the way of God. It's like looking at like they say, every single one of us are born Ma'at Elokim, which is a teeny tiny bit less than God. That means that every single one of us are gods in our own right, in the sense that we have the opportunity to build awareness that is so close to the magnitude of God in itself.
mm,
And when we think of whatever your kind of version of God or a higher power is, it's knowing that that dimension, it's always bigger than ourselves. So this kind of work kind of helps with building that structure. So yeah, that's
wow.
uh,
Wow. Yes, that is so beautiful, Esther. What popped up for me, whenever you talk, I have like these visions that pop up. Like you sort of like open some kind of a floodgate, which I didn't think about for so long. But like learning when I was training for the yoga, teacher training, I was studying with an Indian girl, the philosophy, because she was knew the philosophy. She grew up in it. And I'm reading these books and I don't understand anything. So she offered to learn it with me on the side. And we did. And she told me that what they believe is inside every human is the entire galaxy. It's the universe is inside of ourselves. And we're always taught that, the eyes are always pointing outward. So we're not seeing what's inside. But we have the world inside, which also means we have all the answers. We have the past, the future, the present, everything. We have all the love we need. We have all the everything. We don't have to outsource, is what I got from that. And so we have that universe for us. It's Hashem. It's a Selam Elikim. It's inside of us. So we don't need to look outward. We need to look inward, and whatever it takes to get there is worth it.
yeah,
Um,
I love
yeah.
that. Adding to that, uh, Dr. Ibrahim Karim, he talks about um, the pineal a gland, and he says that the pineal gland is it's that light within. When we talk about, like, yes, the eyes see outward, the inner eye is the pineal gland, and when you close your eyes and you're able to kind of draw light, that's kind of where it comes from, in that space where it's kind of in between the ears and just up there in the middle somewhere. And we can kind of dive into it. He talks about it's incredible. And that's kind of where the light is sourced within us, where we actually see from. And for so many of us, like another training that I took also um, with Paul Check, which all these things used to feel so far in like far away and so mystical and like magic. And he was saying like, um, Paul Chek, he's a practitioner and he has this whole amazing school for the institution. And he says he could sit when he meditates, he can sit on a he'll sit somewhere, and if he's in a place where he's completely balanced, he can trust himself to kind of move into almost the next room and tell you what's going on in that next room. Now, when we talk
Whoa.
about or even just travel, because your
Mm,
consciousness can travel. The thing is, for so many of us, there's so much static.
yeah.
Can't even see what's in front of us, never mind what's going on around us.
Yeah.
The more we clear that space, the clearer minded we get. And that's the point of this. The point of this
Right.
is not I always say it's not about like, women especially, we talk so much about power. Like they're like, we want to take the power back. And it's just like, no, you want to be empowered. That means
Hmm.
you want to turn this light on within yourself. You don't want to take something from someone else.
Right.
That's more of a male kind of leaning
Mm,
perspective. For women, it's about every single one of us have this light within ourselves. And we just want to just turn that on and be completely connected to it and clear the static. So that's kind of where that
yeah.
comes. So yeah.